all over the world. Let me explain something to you, yeah?
Let's talk about the reality.
Once we keep this, like I said, hold on, bro. Like I said, once you turn your back on the narrative that's woven and given to you, you got a free mind now to start looking at things objectively and start looking at what the real. Shut up, listen, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. But please listen. This is when you find the root causes of what's actually going on in your community and the wider communities. Yeah, this is why people are here talking about spirituality, because some of them have realised that this is a deeper thing. This is not even just some joke thing. You think, oh, you're a few rappers and they've come up and it's been organised and orchestrated to be that way. So when we're talking about coming against that, you have to be very strategic, and you really have to engross yourself, immerse yourself in the culture that you're trying to describe. Otherwise, you're going to go wrong. If you think that all the kids out here are listening to drill music or that drill music is a representation, it ain't. It's a weapon. We understand it's a weapon, but what do? Give more energy? No, I'm not in no position, fam. I'm not in no position. What? To do what?
To do something?
Like what?
Like what?
What are you talking about, bro?
Like I said, when they were stabbing, you were going into areas, finding potential criminals.
Potential criminals?
Man,
No, that's not what I done, man. Big up,
you don't want to listen.
That never happened.
You were going into different areas, on a loudspeaker, telling them to put down the knives away.
Don't talk about the loudspeaker.
Remember?
Say that again?
The loudspeaker. Man, your whole group. You used to go around in all different areas, tell all the people, pull away the knives. Surely you could do the same for drill.
For drill. Were there drill rappers there? Was there drill rappers there? Yeah. So what do you mean? I'm trying to say, you're talking about you're saying you're doing the same. Don't tell me what I did, bro. Don't tell me what I did, please, bro. With all respect, you still, like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what you watched, and I don't know what you took away from it. Yeah? Cool. But like in its entirety, I don't think you really captured the essence of what we done. Because you said we went out there and we was looking for potential criminals. That to me is a red flag to say you don't really understand what gang was doing or what community outreach is.
That was a misrepresentation of what he was doing.
Do you think he was successful?
Pardon?
Do you think he was successful?
Yes, of course it was. Successful in what? What was our mission statement?
I hope to reduce the rates.
So was you expecting him to, you was expecting his whole group to just change everything? Is that what you were thinking?
Remember what you said. Remember your first statement, yeah? Remember your first statement, yeah? Don't be idle, just do something. So I'm saying that we do. I'm saying we have done and we do something. A little bit. Now what I'm asking, yeah, he may be saying that. I'm saying, how are you going to now join me, or how am I going to help you to do your bit?
Yeah, that's good.
Because you said you've watched me on video, right?
Let me tell you what I think. I think the drill artists, right, probably have more sway than you have right now. So, when you say controlling the narrative, it's not just the BBC bullshit. You go on YouTube, you just, YouTube like a few drill musicians, you hear what they're saying, man. They're talking about killing each other.
Yeah, you repeated this. We know, we get it.
So, if you could maybe, it doesn't have to be public. Hold on. I know what he's going to say. It doesn't have to be public. You could sit with them one-on-one. You could advise them on what
maybe some people have done stuff like that.
Yeah. I think people have, definitely.
Maybe, it's possible, isn't it?
Okay, fantastic.
You're saying, that they swear a lot, they're killing a lot, But go to the British government, they're just puppies.
Man,
they're little dogs.
That's a bad example.
How's that a bad example?
We're talking about
They're the product of the...
Bro, what's that?
I'm not your bro, but...
Listen, we're talking about the average age of the artists. Right? We're not talking about, one of the leading politicians.
What's the average age? What's the average age in the army? What's the average age of the kid dying in the army? What's the average age of the kid dying in the army? Is it 18?
Comparing the army to how you control the narrative.
What's the average age of the young
Can I
soldiers?
ask you a question?
That's a very good question there,
Let me tell you something.
It's a very good question there. What's the average? Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's young. But hold on. How is the army? So you're comparing the army to how you control narrative of a small community.
They're killers, aren't they?
They go out and kill nations.
How are they killers?
They don't want to talk about that.
They kill us.
They don't want to talk
They
about
throw
that.
their lives away. They get
That's not
scarred.
important. That's not important.
They're psychologically scarred. People lose their lives.
That's not important. That's not important.
It's how you see the world, bro. I hear you. I'm not sticking up for the knife crime that's going on. I'm not saying that all drill music is positive and rainbow. What I'm saying is, it's been weaponized. now, even your perception of these children, I work with them on a daily basis. You understand what I'm saying? I work with them on a daily basis, so I know what they're going through. And so, the best analogy that you could make with them is like people in the army, soldiers, suffering from post-traumatic stress stress disorder and that. Because you know what? Pardon?
That's universal across all countries.
Okay, now we're talking. Now we're talking. You understand? As soon as you understand that this is universal and it's going around everywhere, now we're talking. Now we're getting to the crux of the matter. Now we're moving away from the weaponized language that demonizes a group of kids. Yeah? Which, by all means, yeah, people are running around with big knives and doing this and but I'm not denying none of that. But we got to look at the language and who's pumping it out, who's giving that news out there. Right about now, imagine if you was a young black man, yeah, and you're sitting in your house and you're being told that all other young black men are running around with knives, yeah, and they're indiscriminately looking to stab anyone. What are you gonna do when you come out of your yard? There you go, fam. So you understand there's a whole machine behind this. So the brother over there said, let's go to the top. The brother with the blue top, he said, let's go to the government. You said that's ridiculous. But now we're already here in 2 steps. We're straight back to, we need to keep, it's like the war on drugs. The war on drugs, what? Who gets nicked? Me, you, picking up a bit of ash, a little bit of weed, rare. And my man over there is dropping fucking tons of it in fucking Somerset, or doing this, or getting it.
So
Come on, you know what I'm saying?
That's fine, but this goes. This
Do you want to sell
I
things,
agree with
or do you want to demonize
I
people?
agree with you. This was my point. Like, if you remember earlier, you said switch it off. Just,
Switch off to the narrative that they are spinning and create your own. Engage in your own conversations and look at the world through your own eyes. Take off their paradigm that they're trying to put on you.
That paradigm is affecting the rest of the youth.
Bro, you're not listening, fam. Are you going round and round in circles, and this is what you're doomed
agree
to?
with you.
Perpetual
I
circles.
agree with you.
I think agree, but
I'm just not sure why wouldn't you say let's fucking change the system. Let's try to actually influence the system.
How,
I want to talk about extinction.
listen, how do you think you're gonna? Hold on.
Best example here. Hold on.
Bro,
He
please,
could've said,
you're a
why-
sucker.
Why didn't he sit back and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to switch off from this. I'm going to have my own narrative, and individually, I'm going to be more.
You're putting words in my mouth.
environmentally friendly.
You're not.
But
You're
these guys shut down the
putting.
fucking-
You're putting.
Why did you guys shut down Oxford?
We shut it down first.
Did you?
We shut it down first. We shut it down first. We shut it down first, fam.
You didn't do a well enough job at it.
How do you know what we done, fam? We was in the news, bro. We was on the news.
I don't see it.
No, you never.
These guys shut down the whole city.
Congratulations.
You do the same.
Congratulations.
You do the same.
Shut
You know
down
what?
the-
They're doing it for trees. You're doing it for people.
Congratulations.
You're doing it for real human beings.
These guys shut
And
down
you
the
know
whole,
what?
the whole,
And
the whole.
You know what's funny?
guys,
You know what's funny? I asked them where were you when Greffel burned down.
I'm more of an
They were
observer.
like, oh, they were nowhere to be seen.
Where was I?
So when you were there, no, fine. The point is, they're not even consistent. So if you want to,
Hold on. Are you bigging them up or are you telling them they're not consistent? But you're telling me to follow this narrative.
They claim to have the moral standard and everything, right? But when Greffel burned down,
There were rainbow people there.
they say they care about human lives.
I'm not assessing there was a
Do you know what, bro? Do you know what? Do you know what I see? Do you know what I see, brother? Do you know what I see? Excuse me. Sorry, what's your name?
We were there from
What's your name? Don't. Hold
24
on.
hours before the Red Cross. 24 hours before
Rainbow
the Red
guy.
Cross.
What's your name?
Teo.
Teo. Do you know what I see? Yeah, I see somebody that watches other people's movements with a magnifying glass, yeah, and is so interested in what other people are doing and has a lot of criticisms, but yet is not involved in anything themselves personally.
Me?
Yeah.
You know what's funny?
What he would like to
You know what's
judge.
funny?
What he likes
The
to
first
judge.
time I came to your little gang, I was so
Yeah, 100%. They're critics. We don't like
Man,
critics, bro.
man, that's prospect. The first
Prospect's
time I
there.
came- Do you know what?
That was fucked. That was fucked.
Can we not take this opportunity to talk
Yeah,
about
let's just.
Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah, go on, go
Is
for
there
it.
off camera?
Yeah.
I just want to know, because I first came here, I first came here in Speaker's Corner because a friend of mine, after the army tried to evict us from a rainbow gathering last year, decided he'd heard about Extinction Rebellion and he's going to walk into London from Sussex. I wouldn't have come along, but my friend was going, we were circling along the way, so we walked from Sussex to London. And he went to the first non-violent direct action workshop somewhere in southeast London. And then I was on the bridges, I wanted to see what it was about. And then I was doing swarming. And then I did the BBC action, and a lot of people I know who were there in the green culture, festival culture, environmental culture.
I don't even know what he's talking about, bro. Okay, so you bought a book. You bought a book. Is that what you're saying to me? I rate you, yeah, but like that's well out of what we were saying, though. That's well out of what we're saying.
A year ago, when I did, you said, what am I doing? I'm just putting a magnifying glass, making judgments.
And
That's what
you
you just
bought a
said.
book a year ago, and you want me to turn around and sound like I'm belittling you when I laugh and say, like, okay, you bought a book. All right, no, say no more. But anyway, you were saying
Yeah, so anyway, we
that was very. Yeah.
I'm at the debrief, okay? I'm at the debrief in December, and I'm the one person, there's maybe 60 people there, this is after the bridge action, and I'm the one person who says, where's the money? I know maybe 5 or 6.
What money?
Well, I was in the office because my friend's been involved, and I just know where the office is. I'm sleeping rough in St James's Park, so I go up to see my friend. And this other dude who comes in from the core group, there's like 15 core group, based in Stroud mostly, who've initiated the Extinction Rebellion. And I hear this guy saying, oh, there's 100 grand in the pot, and there's more rolling in. So when I go to the official debrief, I'm the only person who says, where's the money? Isn't it all of our money? There were 5,000 people on the bridge. Where did it come from? Where's it going to? And then it was like, everyone was like paralysed. And then someone said, who was a facilitator, oh, hot topic, it's a hot topic, we'll move on. And then a lady came forward who's got the bank account or whatever.
The bank account for Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, let's go, man. Let's go. It's breaking news.
She says there's not 100,000, there's 20,000. That's quite a big discrepancy.
Big difference.
Yeah. Anyway, the other thing is, I was advocating...
You're saying they've nicked 80,000
I'm not
pounds?
saying that, but what I was advocating was that it should be transparent. There should be finance circles, finance meetings, all during the winter, if you want it to be transparent. And so, yeah, we want to make it transparent. We want to make it accessible. But my friend who's involved, he said there was no finance working groups through the winter. And then when it came to the actual event, I'm not really, I've been at all the things, but I'm not involved in administration. So I come in and I'm setting up the kitchen on the street. We're tapping into the water. And my friend's come with his pots and he's cooking for 5 days. And then he's sent a form for his expenses. He's got to fill out a form. He's like manning the place and feeding everybody. When the main centralised food person comes along, who was actually neighbours to the Rainbow, and he came and had a mugwort ceremony with us. He comes along with this Indian guy, and I'm joking with my friend, saying, oh, we've raised £10, what are we going to do with the money? And the Indian guy says, better give it to the centre, otherwise they won't send you any food. He was making a joke, I was making a joke, but the underlying issue's important, isn't it, about decentralisation?
So, are they stealing money in Extinction Rebellion? Maybe, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to other, but how do you know if it's not transparent? If there's no finance working group, there's the same thing, right?
But like, I find Extinction Rebellion quite funny anyway, because like anything that announces that they're about to do something and gets permission, gets a it's called a. I was about to say a Lannister. It's not Lannister. It's a something agreement where you tell the authorities in advance that you're about to do a big piece of action, and then they kind of co-sign it and say, well, do you know what? Even though it's illegal or whatever, we're going to like to do it. And that's when my spider sense starts tingling. But I mean, I'm not here to put down no one's movement. But this is what I mean about turning your back on the narrative that's always spun to you and actually deciphering for yourself. So through my own investigation, I found a few things that I think are, there's a few discrepancies. The way I analyse the Extinction Rebellion thing, I feel like it reminds me of Black Lives Matter. It reminds me of Occupy Wall Street or Occupy Movement, and a lot of other things that are, unfortunately, government-run psyops preparing us for the eventual. Let me word this. Preparing us for the eventual deliberate uprising, controlled uprising.
So is that
Yeah?
your conclusion, or do you think that that's a possibility?
I believe that this is what we're gearing towards. More psyops, trying to get us ready and disgruntled. That's why we haven't had a leader that even looks like a leader visually or dresses like a leader. Remember, this is about psyops for at least, 8 years on purpose. Same with America. They give us these people like Bush, Trump, these people that you can kind of see through. You can even see from Clinton, a more relaxed version. Now we're being offered people like Cameron, Gordon, May, Boris Johnson. Look at the political landscape. Look what the guys look like. They're very smart. You understand? They know the facial types that'll make you trust people. They know what type of dynamics. They're dealing with the golden ratio. They know how to program the mind and get you to trust somebody. So they keep someone like, what's that guy?
You can't trust any of them.
What's my man? The one that, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
They keep a Jeremy Corbyn with a little, tweed jacket, a little down-dressed jacket, ruffly shirt, looking a bit scruffy. So he's more relatable. You get the grime guys to come out and say, yeah, vote for Corbyn, and this is how they work it. They've done the same thing in America. It's just a big game. It's a big game. What's your one question?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you not use super glue?
Do we use what?
Super glue.
Super glue.
People do. Yeah, people do. They glue themselves
Ain't
to
that bad for the
like,
environment?
and stuff
They
like
stick
that.
themselves down to the
Oh,
spot.
well, for their local environment of their
Yeah, I know
farm,
they do that.
I wouldn't say it was
Yeah, I
all
know.
that good for
And
their
they've got all
farm,
these big,
in that
like,
local
big
sense.
What about when it gets washed away into
metal things that they handcuff
sewage
themselves
system?
to.
I wouldn't say it was that great either. But
Who's
here's
paying for the
another-
super glue?
here's
And then
another
they tidied up
anecdote,
after
yeah.
themselves when they left.
Here's a couple of other anecdotes.
Lawful rebellion.
Are you vegan?
Here's another
Are you
couple.
vegan?
That's
You
what
know what
lawful
veganism
rebellion
means? Causing no unnecessary harm.
Are you vegan?
So I'd like to think that I cause no
Because
unnecessary
they love
harm.
it. They love
No,
it when
you
he
killed
I
it.
don't know
when
what-
he love a
I
burger.
don't know
He
what's
love a burger. Of
necessary.
course he does.
I
He
don't
ain't fucking around.
I eat vegan.
He's
I eat
down for
vegan
it.
burgers.
Vegan
eat
burger,
meat?
vegan sausage.
I don't eat meat.
Roadkill.
No meat at all?
I used to eat roadkill, and I used to
Wow.
take stuff from the bins
Badger.
and stuff.
So
I've
I have
had
a
badger
question.
before, yeah, but about 5 or
Badger?
6 years. Yeah,
Man,
they
I
say
can
it's
get-
not good
get
to eat
tuberculosis, man.
carnivores.
Can I ask you a question?
That's propaganda.
That's propaganda to stop everyone eating the
They're
badger.
healthy animals. It's the cows that are unhealthy.
So why are they saying that? Why are they saying badgers got tuberculosis?
Yeah,
You say
well,
organic.
there's general kind of viruses in the air.
Free
I
range.
have a question for you.
But only sick animals
Free range
become
badger.
subject to it. They've scapegoated the badgers. There's no evidence to suggest that
Can I
they're...
just ask you a question? You know you did the whole environmental thing for saving lives, right? Future lives. Okay, why did you do it?
future lives.
Brother, contact over everything.
Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, so you know the principles of Extinction Rebellion. They want to set up like a body above the government that is, through sortition, like a jury, random selection of people that would dictate to the government, what to do.
Yeah, but ultimately
I
it's the
think
same
that
thing.
they
Still
I
keep the
think-
government.
I think what they're
Keep the
saying,
government.
what they're saying is at the moment is act like we say, not like we do, because they say that they're horizontal. But the anecdotes I have, like for example, after the swarming, when they were stopping traffic after the bridges, again I'm sleeping in the park, so I'm up early. I go to the office. They've got 2 rooms in Victoria, right? This is back in November 7th. They've got all the wheelie bins with all the stuff for keeping people warm, like hot drinks, snacks, all this sort of stuff. I spend 6-7 hours going through all the bags with one other person, clear the whole room. 3 other people get involved, but most of the administration have had a party, so they're not really there. And when they do arrive, they don't really want to sort through the bags. We sort the whole room, and then they're having a debrief. I'm there because I'm wanting to be debriefed.
Mate, can I just
And
ask you
it
again?
turns out, hang on, it just turns out that we're not welcome to the debrief. But I've been on the bridges, I've been on the swarming, and I've cleaned the whole room. And yet it's the debrief is just for the administrator. Another anecdote, I go to, after doing the setup, I go to Parliament Square, and there's rumours of a meeting. But actually there's no meeting, so I go to the rinky-dink stage and say there's going to be a meeting and make an announcement. And then people from the 4 corners, it was quite clever, they had all the northerners in Parliament Square. They had like Glasgow Affinity Group, Edinburgh Affinity Group, Manchester Affinity Group, Leeds Affinity Group. And there's a circle of 50 people. It's the first time I've been in a talking circle where we pass the stick round so everyone's got a turn. that actually used a microphone. We had a microphone.
You've done a G7.
So
Copyright
I just
infringement.
randomly turned up there. There wouldn't have been a meeting if I hadn't bought that. Next day, I go into the kitchen and there's no one stirring the porridge. So I start stirring the porridge, and then people are asking me for food. So I start serving, and then I'm on the other side serving. And then I'm saying, who's the kitchen coordinator? There's no kitchen coordinator. We're running out of gas. So we've got to use the rest of the minute and put raw food in.
What's this conversation
And then there's no gas.
Can I ask you a question?
Has anyone got the number for Waterloo Bridge? No one's got the number
Big
for
man, what's this
Waterloo Bridge.
conversation
We're
actually about?
talking about the dynamics of Extinction Rebellion.
He's
and how they
revealing
say
he's a
that
whistleblower.
That they're horizontally
But they're not. He's a
organised.
whistleblower.
They're
He's
not
doing it in his own way.
organised
He's saying from the
because
inside he
they
saw
didn't
that
have
they're
the
keeping up with
number
dodgy
for
practices.
Waterloo Bridge. They
Taking
didn't have
big
the
money.
number
Money's
for
gone missing.
Harbour
80
Arch.
jibs.
Hear what I'm
They didn't
saying?
have the
80
number
jibs
for-
gone
Listen,
missing.
listen. Can I just have
So
a
what do I have to do? I have to get central organisation.
Can I-
Said we've run out of gas.
Can I
We need
just
some
comment
gas.
on- can I just
The
comment?
person
Can I
goes,
make a
no, I just
comment?
want to finish the story first. So the person has to go to my friend who's looking really, who's put 6 months into it, who's looking really grumpy and disempowered. And he comes down and says, I'm sorry, there's no gas up at Marble Arch. So what I have to do is late at night, because I'm inspired by all the people who are singing to the police and keeping it peaceful, I walk up to Waterloo Bridge from Parliament Square. They've just finished preparing food, so they disconnect the gas. I have to walk it back. Otherwise, there'd have been no hot food for all the people who've been withstanding the police. Now, that wouldn't have happened if there'd have been a finance working group through the winter and there'd have been confidence.
But that whole
So
thing
there'd
is
have
a
been
fraud. That whole
coordinated-
thing is a fraud anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I
That's what
I
I'm
saw that
saying.
from, I told you, I saw it from start, yeah? I saw it on TV and I saw all this shit going on in central London, and I'm sitting in my house thinking, what is this bullshit and who the fuck is this little girl? Because she ain't even from here for a start, yeah? Why ain't she fucking doing that in her own country? And then when I asked someone who was actually Swedish, they said because we don't fucking want her here and we're sick of her, that's why she's coming to do that shit, yeah? And I just saw straight away it's all about money, what they can get, what they can raise, and of course that ain't gonna go to no useful causes. The bottom line is, yeah, people divert the most thing that's fucked up for this world, yeah, is meat eating. Eating meat is one of the most fucked up things for the world.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah?
big activist.
At the end of the day, the most amount of greenhouse gases comes from agricultural industry. So at the end of the day, if everyone stopped eating meat, we wouldn't have to worry about driving around in petrol cars. But they don't say that. And then they pay all the government. The government are paid by the dairy industry, the meat industry. Why do you think the government subsidize farmers to fucking farm cows so you fuckers can eat them, get fat and die of fucking heart disease or whatever the fuck you want to die of, and they don't give a fuck, mate. They don't give a fuck.
Do you think there's anything positive about all those people coming out on the street? Because there are a lot of good
There's
people.
something
There are a lot of
positive
good
about the people coming out, but what they're coming out for is not positive, because at the end of the day, we got to stand up to our government. There's a lot of people in this country that don't even know the difference between lawful and legal. Any law that they make in Parliament, we don't have to follow if we don't consent to it. But they trick people into thinking that, oh, this law that we made, you now have to follow it. No, I don't have to follow it. I follow the common laws of this land. I follow the common laws of this land. Do your research and find out about common laws of the land and become a free
Yeah, but I've
person.
been putting 20 years into
I was going
rainbow
to say,
gatherings.
how are these supposed hippies going to form a secret government that is better than the government we've already got? Kalas, I'm free from this.
Yeah, no, they can't. They can't.
Explain to us why you protest.
I went along to observe what was happening. I do animal rights activism. That's my primary form of
You went to
activism.
observe.
Because I feel that the revolution is going to be a domestic revolution. So, for example, this last Christmas, there was one in 3 caterers in the domestic environment had to cater for a vegan.
Hold on,
Hold on, bro. Let me
ask you a little question, yeah? How come you lot are so interested in fucking animals and not humans?
I am.
Yeah?
I was
Because no. And I mean that with all due respect. I'm not saying, oh, these are not valuable causes, but I see the passion when we talk about animals and veganism and how people are eating, and then we got people being enslaved, people being thrown into prison, people being suppressed.
Can I answer your question?
So much homeless and shit like that. I'm like, how are we not focusing on the humans first, then the animals second?
Because they're taking up all the land.
Let me answer your question, yeah? As somebody who just converted to veganism like about a month ago, I used to love eating meat. Yeah. And now I don't think about eating meat in the same way. Yeah? If you realise what an animal is, and you realise what we are, then you'll realise that vegan people care for animals as much as they care for people. And we see one life as another life. A life of a chicken is the same as a life of a human.
When I go on the marches, like what he's talking about, I don't see none of the Extinction Rebellion lot. I don't see none of the vegan mafia. I don't see no one out there. They just care about their thing. Oh, the animals, the animals.
Which marches?
Well, to be honest here, any ones that are relating to the black community, I don't really see a lot of support from anyone outside of the community. But when I look at veganism, I see, you know, white, black vegans being pro, like, you know, cowspiracy, you know what I mean? And I'm not even arguing with you. I believe that you have points, valid points. But what I don't see is the same kind of gusto for matters a little bit more closer to home. And I would suggest that you live closer to your nearest.
I live in Tottenham, and any time there's something going on, there is always something going on in Tottenham, as there's a lot of violence and gang violence and people stabbings and shootings and stuff like that. There is always stuff going on, and I try to get involved. But at the end of the day, when things are going on, we don't organise them like in the way that these guys are doing it. Like, because I understand what you're saying, and I do think I see all of these shits going on. I see people getting murdered on my street corners and shit like that, and I'm thinking, what's happening with all these young black kids? Yeah, we should do something. We should do something, but no one does it. Nobody does it. And then when people do it, they go, oh yeah, look, they're doing it for a day, and then all right, cool, then that's it, next day, gone. Whenever we, as black people, try to do anything in this country, it gets shut down straight away. Imagine how many. Sorry, wait a minute.
More than the vegan events.
Let me just ask him a question. How many of them people, Extinction Rebellion, come to this thing? How many people did they say it was? No, how many people did they say was in the West End?
They were talking. They've got 30,000 supporters, but there weren't that many in London. I reckon there was 10,000.
But there was more people than that to start with, though, wasn't there? They were saying about 100,000 people was here and stuff like that.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure.
So what? 30,000 people.
Maybe, yeah, 30,000.
30,000 black men come to West End. What the fuck is gonna happen, bruv? They're gonna call the fucking army. They're gonna call the army.
Why don't you team up?
They're gonna call the army.
Maybe they won't.
30,000 black men come down to West End on a rowdy thing.
Maybe they won't. Maybe we need to try.
Shut down.
And see what goes.
All right, let's try it.
I see Tommy get his boys out.
Let's try it.
Why don't you team up?
Let's try it.
Yeah, why don't we?
Let's try it. Let me know when you're gonna do it, and I'll ride. Yeah? But let's see what's gonna happen. Because when black people try and do shit like that, our shit gets shut down. We can't just come on TV and start giving our causes. It don't work like that.
The brother over there made a good point. Oh, let's team up. And I feel like there's many ways that we could team up. Yeah. I think the main thing is this. Yeah, I'm really happy to see the white community out there getting active, being active, and standing up for their rights, and like, you know, shouting about what they care about. Yeah. What I'm saying is, if you can see a little bit more cross interest, like as in showing your empathy with other people's causes, then I think that we stand a chance. I do rate what the white people do, because I don't think enough black people are involved in quote-unquote activism of any way, even if it's just mental or theory. They don't really challenge the status quo in all the ways that they could do, because I think they feel like they're alone, and if they stick their head up above the parapet, then they're gonna get executed. Because I think from history, it kind of shows that when black people do step up, like we are saying, you know, it can be problematic for them.
What about the question?
But there needs to be no fear.
The question about veganism and animal rights essentially being a domestic revolution. So, okay, you can do human rights.
Veganism, animal rights, but like, I feel like you lot should be standing up for your quote-unquote all the injustices. And I feel like we can't just keep... Yeah, but we can't... Bro, if you want to create a revolution, yeah, they say the first revolution is a revolution of self. And then, obviously, you guys are all like humanists and you think we're all together and we're all one. So the next thing should be, bro, you know what? Other people are suffering in this city, in this town that I live in. I want to help and get involved in anything that goes against injustice. Like if you feel like, if you were smart, you would know that, bro, you know what? These minority communities, they're full of strength, they're full of dynamic ideas, and actually, they could be like, you know, we're sitting here watching Game of Thrones and no one's understanding this.
Did you see that little black dude get beat by the police the other day?
Yeah, I know. Well, basically, yeah, it's just a game of politics and chess, yeah, and it's about galvanizing groups of people to come together to face a common enemy. Now, do you think, yeah, that animal rights, vegans, environmentalists, like green people, and like, for instance, the black community, the urban community, like all the type of things.
We all come together.
Do you think that we have a common enemy?
Yeah, I do.
Who is the common enemy?
The people with all the financial wealth.
So then this is what should be focused on. We should be focusing on our common enemy. And even though you have your individual interests, I think that we can't. That's what I'm trying to say. Like you need to find a way, a language to engage with each other, to exchange each other and say, look, we can stand together on this.
Yeah. But I was in a Rasta squad in Kennington. And I was living in that space. I would reason with the elders. And I was talking about rainbow gatherings. That's why I was there. The European rainbow gathering was coming to England for the first time. And so I was reasoning with them and saying, look, this is a chance to reclaim, rainbow reclaiming the land. And they were saying, it's not our land. Africa's our land. And so there wasn't that, I didn't sense willingness to actually engage.
I hear you. But maybe that guy wasn't the right person to have that conversation
there
with.
Were a few people.
Maybe those people are not the right people to have that conversation with, but there's a language that you can use that will unify the people.
You see what you just said about like everybody finding the one common cause, what we all disagree on. Yeah, which we can all probably say we don't like our government.
I would say the common enemy.
The common enemy. Yeah, so we all try and focus on the common enemy. But if you look around, although we've all got common enemies, you see each one of these people arguing with each other about subtle differences, maybe religion, maybe colour, maybe class, maybe creed, maybe sexuality. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is what is stopping people from coming together. They divide us. They divide us at every single opportunity, from colour to race to fucking where you're from to how much money you got. They divide us, so we can never fight together, because even though we've all got one common enemy, like you said, which is probably the government who are running the shit and making our lives hard, we still can't just go, you know what, let's just put our differences aside. I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew. You know what, let's just fight against what we believe in.
Well, that's the prophecy of the rainbow. From all cultures and creeds.
The rainbow's been tainted, I
I agree.
They've been hijacked the rainbow.
The same stuff I've seen in Extinction Rebellion, I've seen as European. There's someone under a bush phoning up a German organic wholesale distribution. They think they're probably doing a good thing, but that magic hat should be accessible. And I've been around a big food circle with 2,000 or 3,000 people saying, where's the magic hat? And I've seen that where the magic hat have had meetings after the congregation and decided what to do with the money. They've no business to do that. And there is, detailed a rainbow mafia, jet set mafia, who come in and control the finances. And it doesn't mean that the talking stick is the tool of communication. And that's the idea of getting back to nature and getting water from springs and eating in circles and playing music and sharing stories.
So it's all about listening together, eating food from the street.
It's about that community sovereignty, like using the talking stick, and it's about getting back to nature. And it's and the thing is, you have all the things that you have in mainstream. Like in the last 2 years, we've done rainbow gatherings. There's been a Me Too phenomenon, of women coming forward and making claims about historical abuse. But the thing is, in rainbow culture, you can process that. The women could have circles, the men could have circles around them, and there's more effective processing. But it's a mirror of exactly the same things that go on in mainstream society.
Interesting. So, all right.
So how did Extinction Rebellion start?
Well, yeah, it's been brewing for a couple of years from what I've heard. And there's a core group of about 15 people. And a lot of them were based around Stroud. But there's a lot of accusations around that there's someone who's involved in 5G or is advocating the rolling out of 5G and smart technology where corporations would become green and the technology would direct people to invest in those green corporations, and the capitalists arrive on their shining white steed and say we're here to solve all the problems, where it's just the same thing. They're just taking advantage of a legitimate environmental concerns and just going to make capital out of it. But I do think that within Extinction Rebellion, the people on the street, they're communicating, doing a lot of talking. The fact is that I was unable to debrief because they didn't have accessible debriefing. After an action of 2 weeks, you should have a good week's worth of constant debriefing. How was it for everyone? How we can do it better. So as I wasn't afforded that facility, as someone who's put an awful lot of time in, I'm just debriefing everywhere. I'm debriefing to you now. I'm debriefing.
So what's your view on it all then?
What's that?
So what's your view of it all?
Of the Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah.
I
What's
think
your overall sort of vibe you get from it?
I think it's really good that it's alcohol drug free. I think it's really good that it's.
What do you mean by that?
What's that?
What do you mean by that? It's like it's not permitted to drink.
Yeah, and that's the policy, and I saw it was well respected in general. What I saw, I wasn't there the whole time. But also, I think it's good that the principles of non-violence, and I think it is good the principle of disruption, and actually people taking the courage to do that. But yeah, I also saw a lack of horizontal organisation, and that would be fine if they were saying no, we're just a lobby group, and we're acting in a professional way. But they didn't say that. They said we're horizontal, everyone's in charge, and as far as I saw, it wasn't like that.
Bad seeds being sown.
Yeah, but I think there's also some good that can come out of that.
Yeah.
What's your perception of it?
To be honest, I don't really have much of a perception of it. Just like slight news like sort of footage. I can't really say I don't much. It's literally why I asked you how it started. So like, how long was it until it sort of like started to gain sort of like force? When it started to like get like these 10,000 people?
Well, I could tell because last year they had 5,000 out on the bridges, and I could see with their networking, they were going to get a lot more. So what I do mostly is animal rights, because I see it as more effective, and the messaging is clearer. The messaging with from what I see of Extinction Rebellion is about climate change, which I'm not a scientist, I'm not fully sold on anyway. And also they're talking about the extinction of wild species, which I agree, but they're not emphasising the horrific state in which animals are being kept, are being mutilated, are being artificially inseminated. They're not talking about that for the same reason, like as Jedi put out, Cowspiracy, the film Cowspiracy, it's not good for membership if you start talking about that kind of stuff. Well, because people don't want to sign up to something where their own habits are being challenged. They think it's not good for business, essentially, to talk about that. So, in general, the vegan community's got issues with regard to the messaging of Extinction Rebellion.
I was thinking about starting being a vegan again, but I don't know if I can do it. I don't think it's I feel it was like, so I was a vegetarian for ages, and then I just felt I was like fighting a losing battle. I felt like, why not just enjoy me? Like, I'm not this one person like making a contribution. Isn't the contribution that's needed?
Yeah, I've been 7 years. I was 7 years vegetarian, then became a vegan, and I've been vegan 20 years. I've fallen off maybe 2 or 3 times, and also I've had a little bit of roadkill and a little bit of food from bins, but not very much at all, and I wasn't searching it out. And for me, that still remains within the definition of veganism, which is causing no unnecessary harm. There's another expression called abolitionism, which is saying that we have no need to exploit animals or use animals in any form. So in that sense, I wouldn't have been a strict abolitionist in that time. But I think it is sustainable, and I think it is quite possible, and the top nutritional bodies agree with that. I think that a lot of the discomfort that people feel is, one, diets in general aren't healthy, from supermarkets, and 2, if we're not eating meat, then we're not consuming the mainstream. So we're not in the same psychological state as the mainstream, and that can provide some discomfort. And what I think is, as vegans, that we need to step outside of the box of consumerism. There's an expression that vegan capitalism isn't the solution. We need to step outside the box of what the supermarkets are providing us. It can sustain us as vegans, but it's not really going to give us that vitality that we really need. And that we need to develop permaculture systems, and we need to be that we don't need monoculture. We need other systems of agriculture, which are like forest gardening, which is going to provide a lot more vital food because it's going to be closer to wild food. And that's what we really need. That's what I advocate. And also collecting water from springs and having a more vital connection with our environment in general.
In your opinion, does it have negative effects on your body eating meat?
What's that?
Does it have negative effects on your body eating meat? Obviously too much of it, but I mean, like, even just a little, I don't know, chicken on the weekends, I think is it?
Well, I think, the Queen advocates eating wild venison and wild salmon. And the fact is, most of the people in cities are eating animals that have been pumped full of hormones, antibiotics, and are generally contained in pretty horrible. So they're unhealthy, so they're going to be accumulating toxins.
Isn't that same with all the fruit and veg as well, though, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are bred for profit, a lot of them. But I don't think that they're not accumulating the same degree of toxicity as animals are, because the animals are also eating those monoculture sick vegetation. They're in general not eating, the wild plants. So.
Nice to meet you. What's your name, bro?
Teo.
Rashad.
Rashad. Nice to meet you, Rashad.
Have you read it before?
If their parents were good, we give their life today. The good. If their parents were good, we give their life today.
Politicians must act through laws, but this is not the right thing for the politicians to act where there isn't really something happening. And it's not really politicians' business anyway to involve themselves in what discussions people want to have. So, this man.
Do your thing, I'll go after.
Get all three together. So I don't know what he wants to talk. What do you want me to talk about today?
I was just going to ask you about why you come, basic questions, why you come to Speaker's Corner, what you're trying to do.
Okay, I'll do that. Yes. I promised him before, so he's come. But I don't mind because you're already here as well. You want to look after this camera?
I'm going to go grab the chairs.
Okay.
So you know.
I remember. It's Lord Allen. Lord Allen.
Hey. Right. Yeah, no, chat to Leon. But just move the camera there. You keep one eye on it.
Yeah, that's very key. Excellent stuff. Do you have any way of tethering it? It's very good. It gets some bumps in. Lay it.
No, I'll keep it and then
Look forward to seeing you in a while then.
see you in a little bit.
And what's your name?
My name's Leon.
Leon. How long have you been doing your videos in Speaker's
Corner for about 2 years now.
Oh, very good. And what do you call your website?
It's called Content Over Everything.
Content over everything. Have you got kind of a sticker that you can use as a backdrop? Because Julian uses Lessons for Life to make sure you want people to see your website.
I'll just put my logo in the corner.
Okay, you put a logo there.
Leon. When I put this on.
Nice day to film. It's beautiful. Are you with this? Are you with Leon?
Every week.
Most weeks.
She wants to be with me. I thought about it, but that's as much as I've done thought about it. Yeah.
When I heard a teaching called Divine Principle, which looked at providential history as the mathematical cycles. So it gave me something, a frame of reference. It's like, you know, when you do a jigsaw puzzle, you put the edge pieces in first.
Yeah.
And that tells you everything else has to fit inside that, yes? So that's what got me going. If it hadn't been for that, I would have read the Bible and thought, what's this all about?
I'm probably gonna ask you that again, you know. That's some useful bit of information. So what's your name again,
I'm quite
sir?
interested in what you said. It's very interesting. It's a very clear point of view that you put.
Can you give me a mic check?
Hello, can you hear me? Quite long, this, isn't it?
What's your name again?
Does it work? Yes. Where's that got?
Yes. Yeah, I think we heard it. Oh, let's go.
They're quite good because they make your voice a bit deeper, don't they? If you don't have this, it sounds very funny, the voice.
You can let go of this, you can leave that, if you leave the drag on the floor, that's alright. Now give me a mic check again. Huh? What's your name again, sir?
My name's William. William.
Hi, William, yeah. Alright, cool, we're rolling, we're ready.
Hello, Leon.
Alright, nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I've seen you on Speaker's Corner a few times, and you're outstanding.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Obvious or...
Like you got your hat on, you got your King's hat on.
I do stand out with the King's hat, don't I?
Yeah. And then you got this sign behind me. Where is it you come to Speaker's Corner to do?
I came to Speaker's Corner. I've been coming to Speaker's Corner for many years, and I try to teach people an outline of a teaching called Divine Principle. Divine Principle is a teaching brought to the West by Reverend Sun Myung Moon, and it deals with understanding the development of providential history from a cyclical point of view, as stages, as 3 stages or 4 stages. So it deals with all the formulas that are hidden in the Bible. So most people are not aware that there are formulas in the Bible. It starts with, for instance, the story of Genesis. In the story of Genesis, there are 6 days of creation. And then it says, the Lord rested on the 7th day. It's interesting, although the Bible says the Lord rested on the 7th day, Jesus, when he was accused of curing people on the Sabbath, said, ever since the beginning, my Father has not rested, and neither will I. So another interpretation of the 7th day is that it wasn't Sabbath, it was simply a day that God ceased from his work. It's not a day that God rested to enjoy his work, because it wasn't completed. But God gave Adam and Eve a command not to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And when it says, after the Sabbath, it said the Lord was walking in the cool of the day, and God was walking in the cool day, which means the 8th day. So you have the 6 days of creation, you have the 7th day described as a Sabbath, but Jesus hinted that it wasn't actually a Sabbath, it was simply God has desisted from his work. Then you have the 8th day, when God has turned up and found Adam and Eve have covered themselves with fig leaves, and says, what have you done? And they sort of denied responsibility. The woman says, that Adam says the woman made me do it, gave me this fruit. The woman says that Lucifer gave me this fruit. And so no one wanted to take responsibility for disobeying the command. So you have here the first formula in the Bible is an 8-day formula. Many people think the Bible is a 7-day formula, the book of Genesis. It's actually 8 days. So why is that significant, 8 days?
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, simply because it says 6 days, then it said the Lord desisted from his work.
Is it through your own research though?
Well, yes, I researched the Bible. I went into the Bible and I wanted to see what that first formula was. Obviously there's 6 days. Obviously it's called the Sabbath, the 7th day. But I just found when I read where in the New Testament where Jesus said, ever since the beginning my Father hasn't rested, the 7th day wasn't really a Sabbath for God. Jesus said the Sabbath was given for man. And he made the statement. So I then noticed there was one more day, because he said the Lord was walking in the cool of the day. So if he's walking in the cool of the day, that would be the morning. That's the coldest part of the day. So I assumed that to be the 8th day. So I thought there's an 8-day cycle here, not a 7-day cycle. And everyone's missed it. Because wherever you go, wherever you listen to Christians, they tell you there's 7 days, the 7-day cycle.
What even drives your interest in religion at all?
Probably because one of my ancestors was a priest. And on my mother's side of the family, Catholic side, there were many nuns. The family were interested in religion, so it seems to be, I think it's ancestors. But what drove my own personal interest was the idea that the Bible is a formula. And that idea came when I was listening to the radio in 1972, I was listening to Radio Luxembourg, which was a famous independent radio station. It wasn't a pirate radio station, it was an independent radio station, and the disc jockeys had decided to teach some series of programs or lectures about the different religions. So they done a lecture about Islam, a lecture about maybe Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, and they were doing a lecture about the Unification Church, which are known as the Moonies. And in that lecture, they're talking about the formula of providential history, the stages of providential history. It's a formula. Well, I'd never looked at the Bible as a formula. Well, I never looked at the Bible anyway. I'd heard a few things from the Bible when I was in a convent as a young man. I decided Jesus was a good man, but I couldn't hack the Bible. I couldn't get into it to even begin to understand what it was about until I heard the formula. It's like when you do a jigsaw. What's the first thing you do when you tip out a jigsaw box? You put all the pieces the right way up. Then you look for the corners. Then you look for the edge pieces. Then you look for the obvious colours. And then the most difficult part is the end, when you do like the blue sky or the brown earth, because all the pieces are the same. So you're trying to match by shape. But there are about 6 formulas to do a jigsaw puzzle. So I realised that when you want to understand something and piece together something, you're going to have a formulaic approach. You start with the edges, the corners. In the Bible, the formulaic approach is really a time period within which everything has to be accomplished. Now, there's a formula that Jesus left, a famous formula of the fig tree, the master and the fig tree. It's where the master plants a fig tree and dungs it around 3 times, but there's no harvest. So he wants to remove the fig tree because it's not producing a harvest, so just throw it away. But the servant says, let me try one more time. And that tells me, that parable tells me that there are 4 cycles to human history. 4 cycles. The master, means God, has tried 3 times to bring the tree to fruition, but it hasn't come to fruition. But the servant says, let me try it. Who is that servant? If there are 4 cycles, how long are they? Now, Jesus also taught that the day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. That's in Peter. Peter said, let us remember that to the Lord a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. So I assume...
You mean a day to us is... I mean, a day to the Lord is 1,000 years to us?
No, a day to us... yes, a day to... 1,000 years to us is a day to the Lord.
Okay.
So the understanding of days is... From our point of view, is the different to the understanding of God.
So whenever God talks about a day, he means 1,000 years in our
1,000 years. But he also said 1,000 years is a day. So 1,000 years could go by and mean only a day. But that's comparing it with Genesis. So when you think of the story of Genesis, there are 6 days, 7 days, 8 days, however you look at it. And each of those days, of course, is more than one day. It just means cycle. Okay. It just means there's a certain number of cycles in order to complete the process. So if there are 8 stages in the cycle to complete the process of creation, including man's responsibility, Adam and Eve's responsibility, we're given a commandment. So God's work is complete when Adam and Eve fulfill their responsibility to keep the commandment. God can't do 100% of the responsibility. He can do 100% of his responsibility. He can't do someone else's responsibility.
William, using your formula to understand the Bible, have you been able to get any information that you've been able to use in your life, in your modern day life?
Yes, the main information is useful now because we're living in the last days. So from the formula, I understand that we are actually living in the last days. Jesus taught that the last days would be shortened. So when you look at providential history, you can see 3 2,000-year cycles. That's from Adam to Abraham, it's 2,000 years, it's in the Bible. The genealogy is in the Bible. Then from Abraham to Jesus, 2,000 years. And then we know from history that from Jesus till the year 2000 is 2,000 years. But in Jesus' formula of the fig tree, we know there's 4 cycles, because he says the master does 3 cycles, and the servant, the master, can't do more than 3 cycles. But then when still there is no fruit, the servant says, let me do the last cycle, let me try one time. And then the master, God, agrees. But Jesus taught the last days will be shortened. So when we think of the cycles as 2,000 years, and we know that there are 3 2,000 years, the last cycle must be shorter than 2,000 years. Well, how do you know what it might be? 200 years, 20 years? You will know it's the last cycle because it will have the same pattern. So if I take a photograph of you and make a thumbprint, you wouldn't have any difficulty seeing yourself in the thumbprint, would you? even though it was very small. So it should be possible to see the last 2,000 years, from Jesus till the year 2000, it should be possible to see that pattern of history in the pattern of the last 20 years. If the quickening has happened over a period of 20 years, what proves it is the pattern will be the same. Does that make sense? The pattern of history. So what then is the pattern of providential history? If we're looking at two cycles, the cycle from Jesus till the year 2000, that's the third cycle. We know that there are 4 cycles from the parable of the fig tree, and we know that the last cycle, Jesus explained, will be quickened. It will not be another 2000, it will be shortened. So we have to look for a time period to compare it with the 2,000-year pattern. So back when I was a young man, I noticed that American history, the American Revolution was 1776, and the American bicentennial was 1976. So it looks as though God had tried to re-establish Christianity in America when it failed in Europe over a 200-year cycle. So I thought it's probably very likely that the last cycle would be 20 years. God would go from 2,000 to 200 to 20 years. Because the more times you do something, the quicker you do it. What you're trying to work with, like being a parent, you're trying to get your children to listen to you, and it takes a while. But when you work out how to do it, you get a response. So God starts to learn about how man will respond to his Holy Spirit, and he works in a shorter time scale to bring out. If you look at the 2,000-year cycle, it began with the birth of Jesus. He was born 2,000 years after Abraham, but he was also 40 years after Jesus died. There was the destruction of Jerusalem. That was a major event which Jesus prophesied. So when I put the parallels of history together, I calculated that there would be an event. If it was a 20-year cycle, there would have to be an event very quickly in the first year, which represented the destruction of Jerusalem, which happened when Jesus was 70 years old, dead, but he would have been 70 years old. Jerusalem was 70 years after he died at 33. They say that anyway that the timetable is 3 years out, and Jesus was born 3 BC. That's what they say, the historians. Jesus was born 3 BC. So if he died at 33, that means the destruction of Jerusalem was 40 years after Jesus died, or 70 AD. So the destruction of Jerusalem was actually on August the 10th, the destruction of the temple. August the 10th is 69.59 years exactly. So when it says 70 AD, it means in the 70th year, but it wasn't the end of the 70th year. So the destruction of Jerusalem came 69.59 years. So an event would have to take place in the quickening representing the destruction of Jerusalem. That event was 9/11. 9/11 was destroyed in the quickening at exactly the parallel event of the destruction of Jerusalem, the parallel time period, 0.6959 years. They were both. So Israel was the first Israel. When Israel failed to receive Christ, and with Christ go to the world, Christ went without Israel to the world. He taught his disciples to teach the good news of the kingdom to the whole world. So America was in the position of the second Israel. Because it was in the position of the second Israel, in the event that America failed, there would be an event similar to the destruction of Jerusalem, because the parallel history. Well, the position of the second Israel, partly because of the 200-year period of history in which America was established. The purpose of the Christianity is to bring the good news of the kingdom, but the kingdom is a diverse, a centralized kingdom. Jesus Christ said the kingdom is in the midst of you. He taught the kingdom, the kingdom. So when the English Revolution took place in 1649, the King Charles had his head cut off, but the king was back 10, 15 years later. The English Revolution didn't work. So the people who wanted a decentralized kingdom went to America. America is where men of faith went to establish the kingdom of God. They didn't want to be controlled by dictatorship, a single powerful monarchy. They didn't want this. They went to America and they established America. And then for 200 years, the history of America would be catching up with the 2,000 years development of Christianity. So that's how I'm seeing the parallel, that America represents represented the second Israel because it's where the Pilgrim Fathers went because of their faith, to build the kingdom of God. So the people who want to build the kingdom of God, they can't be a people who've already failed. God doesn't use people who fail. He doesn't use them again. God has to move on. So when in the case of Jesus, when Jesus met John the Baptist, although John the Baptist testified by the Holy Spirit that Jesus was the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, he never followed Jesus. So when Jesus left that situation, he picked up disciples from the highway and the byway, and he picked up Peter, and he asked Peter, who do you say I am? He says, you are the Christ. He said, flesh and blood has not told you that. So Jesus is in Peter is in a similar position to John the Baptist, knowing by the Holy Spirit who Jesus is, not by hearing it from other people, but by the Holy Spirit. John said, he testified by the power of the Holy Spirit. We never followed Jesus. He said, not by my thinking, but the Holy Spirit which descended like a dove showed me that Jesus is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. So when Jesus wanted to see if he had a replacement to John the Baptist, it seemed to be Peter. Peter was the one whom he asked, or who he said, who am I? Peter said, you are the Christ. He said, flesh and blood has not told you this. The Holy Spirit has showed you this, which is what Jesus wanted. He wanted someone who knew by the Holy Spirit who he was. Not because someone met him in the park, just, I've just met the Christ. Messiah is back. This is a slightly complicated one. It's a bit scrubbed out. It's not the one I normally use, but it has the 5 stages of history. In this bottom one, it has a cycle called the fall of man. The fall of man cycle is probably about 20 years long, and Adam and Eve would have fallen at about 17 years old in their adolescence. They would not be seduced in their maturity. They'd be seduced in a person can only be seduced in their immaturity. So Adam and Eve would fall at a certain point into the unprincipled realm. And then the history, providential history, called the Old Testament, began, which is a 2,000-year cycle from Adam to Abraham. And it was extended because Abraham failed in the offering. He failed to cut the birds in half. So it was extended formulaically, and that formula was incorporated in the following 2,000-year cycle. So God basically works through 2,000-year cycles to accomplish his purpose. We know that from the formula of Jesus there are 4 cycles. There are 3 2,000-year cycles plus a quickening, because Jesus talked about the last day, the day being 1,000 years. So if you look at what's already been accomplished, you see every 2,000 years there seems to be a new central person. There was Abraham, then there was Jesus, then there was the year 2000, in which Reverend Moon brought the divine principle to the West. And likewise, that 2,000-year cycle came to an end, and the last 20-year cycle began. So we're living in the last 20-year cycle now. But we've already had 3 2,000-year cycles which have a similar pattern. Now, the older back you go, the less information you get. So if you move slightly forward to the time between Abraham and Jesus, you get some details in the Bible. You get 6 stages in that 2,000-year cycle. You get the 400 years of Egyptian captivity. They call it the captivity in Egypt. They weren't sovereign in their own country. Then you had the 400-year period of judges started by Moses. Then you have the United Kingdom of Saul, David and Solomon, 3 40-year periods. Then you have the divided kingdom north and south, where the 2 tribes and the 10 tribes are in conflict with each other. Then you have the 210-year Babylonian exile. And then you have the last 400 years preparing for the return for Christ to come, because they're teaching that Christ is coming. This formula is the same formula worked out here after the failure of Abraham through Isaac and Jacob. These time periods that appear in this period here from Abraham to Jesus. This formulaic period was already worked out in Abraham's family, on the family level. So God expanded that formula. Anytime you make something, you have a time period. You have energy to make something. So by the time all your energy is gone, you want your purpose to be accomplished. If your purpose isn't accomplished, like you want to drive from A to B, and you've run out of energy, you're stuck, you're in trouble. So everything has a certain quantum of energy to accomplish it. But in the case of the human portion of responsibility, very often emotion gets in the way. So you want to do something, and suddenly everyone starts arguing, because emotions take over, and people forget what it is they wish to accomplish. And that applies on the individual, family, tribe, society, world, cosmic level. People lose it at a critical moment. They cannot finish their work. Therefore, there's no base on which God can come. God comes on a foundation that is accomplished according to his will and purpose. So we can see again and again, God is using the same formula. He's expanding his formula till the last days. Now, Jesus taught the last days will be shortened. So we don't have to expect another 2,000-year cycle. What we do have to expect is a compressed cycle which has the same pattern as a 2,000-year cycle. So if you were to compare the history from Jesus until the year 2000 with the history from the year 2000 to 2020, which is time to come at the end of this year, we see it's a cycle. It follows the parallels of history. And so there are two types of events you can notice in history. Some events you can notice by mainstream newspaper. Look at a newspaper account of history, that'll give you one view of history. But when you read the Bible, you read about maybe they didn't figure large in the newspapers of their day. They figure large in the testimony of their followers, but they may not figure large in the testimony of the news. You have two kinds of everybody. Cycle that was to come, which would end with the three global conflicts: the First World War, the Second World War, and the Cold War. These are the three conflicts where Satan tried to control the world, take the world away from God's sovereignty. So the pattern of Jesus' life contains very important formulas which God can apply also in the last days. Jesus wasn't able to accomplish all the purpose that God wished to accomplish, but he accomplished spiritual salvation. Through the cross, through sacrificing himself, he opened the way that all people could experience the Holy Spirit and redemption. That wasn't available up to that moment. It wasn't available. God wanted to give a greater blessing, but what was the qualification for it? In the Old Testament, they could offer animals. But this is a higher level that God wants to give mankind, so it takes a higher offering. So Jesus was ready to offer his life as a sacrifice for this higher level of blessing to be available even for sinners who repent. So now we came through this 2,000 years from Jesus. We came through a period of history which followed the pattern of the Old Testament period of history, the 6 stages. It was 400 years under the Roman Empire. Then it was the patriarchs for 400 years. Then Charlemagne was made king by Pope Leo. That was the Holy Roman Empire, began in the year 800. Remember, the first king in the Old Testament, Saul, David and Solomon, began after 800 years. So we know in history, Charlemagne became the Holy Roman Empire after 800 years. So you see there's a formula in history. And it was this formula taught in the Divine Principle, brought to the West by Reverend Moon, that first interested me to study view. And I didn't know any of his followers, so all I did was I got a copy of the Bible. I think I picked one up in a second-hand shop for 10pence or something, or shilling, whatever it was at that time. I think there was shillings for that, old currency. And I remember just writing on the back of a cornflakes packet all the formulas. And I worked out that there's a relationship between the 8 days of creation, 8 days, not 7, not 6, and the 4 2,000-year cycles, the last of which is a compressed 20-year cycle with the same pattern as the 2,000-year cycle.
How would you fit your 8 days into a year?
Well, 8 days, Jesus said, well, Jesus taught that a day is as 1,000 years. So once you see that providential history has 3 2,000-year periods, that makes 6,000 years. 6,000 years equals 6 days. 6 days is the number of days God, or cycles God used to establish the environment for Adam and Eve, for mankind. And then there were still another 2 days which involved human portion of responsibility, because God gave a command to Adam and Eve. And so it's when God came back after the Sabbath, or God stopped working, when he came back on the 8th day and he was walking in the cool of the day, he sees Adam and Eve have fallen. So the process of creation is not accomplished. So God has to start from scratch through 4 cycles to accomplish everything.
Hey William, how come you wear that hat?
I wear this hat because politicians are becoming entrenched in the system. A person should become a politician for maximum 8 years, 2 cycles, and then new people should come, because politicians should be servants of the people. When the politicians never are always incumbent politicians, so many of them, that means they think of themselves as kings, don't they? So we're their servants. They're not our servants anymore, they think of us as the servants. Well, this is why do we want democracy? Because we the people want sovereignty. And we want more power devolved into communities, so we want to be in charge of our communities. For instance, if you wanted to make a roof terrace between 2 houses, you're prevented by the, I think, the Department of Environment or the Building Control in London, which sets the criteria for the whole nation. You can't have roof terraces. Very difficult to have roof terraces. But if you wanted to look after 2-3 generational families, and you wanted them to build a roof terrace between 2 semi-detached houses, you'd be in trouble with the central authority because centralised power. Power should be decentralised. Local communities should take responsibility for the rules for their community. Everything should not be centralised. They centralise everything. They start to say you have to accept gay marriage, you have to accept transgender. Everything they say you have to. What business is it of theirs to tell us what we should and shouldn't accept? People should decide in their community what they should and shouldn't accept. That's the people's choice. But the politicians impose it. They have a rigged democratic system, which is not really democracy, because we just put a cross on a piece of paper. That's like an idiot who's not semi-literate. Why did the idea of a cross on a ballot come about? Because people couldn't sign their name. So you put a cross. That's where it came from. It's not even a signature. You see, so we don't really have real democracy. In a real democracy, you listen to each other's point of view in your area, a local democracy, and you come to a consensus, because you don't want to be outside of a consensus with your neighbours. You try to work out a balance that keeps more people happy. Not just the majority gets their way, but a consensus. Work out a general consensus.
I see you got the fighting back the Brexit party sign.
Yes, this is Brexit.
We saying you're a supporter of the Brexit party?
I support Brexit because Brexit is the same as the English Revolution. Brexit was June the 23rd, the year 16, which is 16.49 years. Well, that's the quickening. In the quickening, Brexit at 16.49 years is the equivalent of the English Revolution in 1649. And remember, the English Revolution failed because the monarchy came back. It didn't decentralise power. So the people wanted to decentralise power from the monarchy. So those people who wanted that ended up going to America and making the American Revolution. So Brexit, in the same way that the English Revolution seeded the American Revolution, Brexit seeded the Trump Revolution in America, which is a move towards decentralising power.
If I put to you that Charles was right to claim divine authority, and it was a mistake to have had his head chopped off, would you agree?
Well, they should devolve some power. I mean, if you want to have a king, you still have to devolve power. You can't have a dictator. What's the difference between a king and a dictator then? What is
Nothing
the difference?
at all, but you can
well, there should be some difference.
Good dictators and not such
No, you should have some distinction. Once again, the people wanted to decentralise power, but the kingdom is based on diplomacy. So you decentralise power, but you can't do everything through power. Some things you have to do through diplomacy. If you're doing everything because the king has power, then everything is done through power. Do we want it to live in a society where everything is power? Every time the government passes another law, it's another hammer to hit us with. Sometimes they pass laws and don't apply the laws, but 10 years later they say, oh, we're applying the law now. There's no resistance because they don't apply the law. Then 10 years later they suddenly start applying the law, and they hit us with this hammer of the law. And we have so many laws, and you won't know all the laws. In the end, once they start hitting us with the hammer of the law, they say there's the laws, they come and prosecute you for a dozen things, but you have to use your own money to defend yourself. They use government money to attack you. They say you've broken the law. Yes? They don't use their own money. They use government money. But you have to use your own money to defend yourself, as many of the Trump supporters had to do in America. The state prosecuted them because they weren't paying as individuals. Fake Justice Department people weren't paying for the prosecution. They're using government money to prosecute people who have to defend themselves with their own money.
So does your formula give an end date?
Well, the end date, from God's point of view, yes, the year 20, at the end of the year 20 is the end of the formula. And so the Bible said that there will be, the servant asked God if he could try one more cycle. God, in the master and with the fig tree dunged around 3 times, gave up, but the servant says, let me try one more time. It didn't say there was a 5th time. So after that, they must come. That's when judgment comes. So we're moving. Remember that in history, the First War, the Second World War, was followed by the Cold War, which was potential Armageddon because of nuclear weapons discovered after the Second World War. So the world was in a position to destroy itself. The world got through that crisis. And there was the INF treaty was made between Gorbachev and Reagan, which took away the potential flashpoints of tactical nuclear weapons. But now they want to bring them back. Trump has pulled out of the INF treaty, and there's a moratorium until I think August the 1st or 3rd. And at that time, the Americans will decide whether they bring tactical nuclear weapons into Europe. If they do, it will be war. And everything you see around you will be a terrible situation. This will be turning the clock back from what was accomplished by Gorbachev and Reagan.
And the other question is, you've got, was it 2 or 3 2,000-year cycles?
Yes.
And then the quickening was 20 years.
Yes.
I can imagine a 2,200 and then a 20, but you're following your interpretation of the formula.
Yes.
And the quickening is a shorter time period.
With a shorter time period, it says, unless those days are shortened, none will be saved. That's what it says in the Bible. So if you think of it, if there was to be another 2,000-year cycle, there's no way mankind can go through another 2,000-year cycle, not with nuclear weapons. So all these tensions must be solved now before these weapons become even more destructive than they are now. We have to resolve this tension now. Politicians have to resolve this now. There will not be another opportunity. So it's going to come to a head this year. What the pattern of history, which came to a head in the Cold War, it'll come to a head also in this short 20-year cycle. It'll be the same phenomena taking place. You can use mathematics to know we're going to go through the same phenomena. We are fortunate enough to have mathematics and the formulas given by Jesus in the Bible. They're in the Bible. There are only 3 or 4 formulas given by Jesus. It's interesting because Jesus died on the cross, and the cross has 4 directions. It's interesting, you could say Jesus died to bring the formula to mankind of the time period within which he has to solve the problem, his portion of responsibility. Jesus died to bring us this formula. And although people didn't understand this formula, you don't see Christians arguing about it. They haven't even noticed this formula. They argue about irrelevant points of doctrine, yet this fundamental formula is in front of everyone's face, the 4 formulas of Christ, and no one's starting to think, hang on a second, what are we getting ourselves into again? The pattern is repeating. We're starting to notice we're repeating the pattern that was so destructive in history. Everything breaks down. For instance,
excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, William. I'm going to wrap up as well now.
You're welcome.
Respect. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much. I hope it's a bit intellectual, but it has this content, a lot of intellectual content. I'm looking only at the, like when you do a jigsaw, there's a process and then when you've done the jigsaw, you have to look at what the content of the jigsaw is. So when we look at this time period in which we have to accomplish something, then we have to go into the detail afterwards. What is actually happening? And it's all about the father-son relationship. God is trying to establish a lineage. I didn't get into that. The purpose of history is to establish the father-son relationship that connects to God's lineage, God's love. So when you have children, you get married, you have children, they're connected to God's lineage of love. That's what it's all about. So Jesus never got married, so he never established a lineage. If he had established a lineage, then we would all be intermarrying. And so by intermarrying, we'd be one blood. But he never established that. He established spiritual salvation. So because Jesus established spiritual salvation, the problem still remains in the blood lineage. People who are reborn are incorporated beyond national boundaries. Incorporated. But people who are not reborn are struggling with the lineages with each other, different nations fighting each other. That's what's happening. Jesus didn't complete what he had to do. So he has to come back to complete what he didn't do, which is the 3 blessings God gave to Adam. He said to be fruitful, multiply, and gain dominion. It's the authority of a centralized blood lineage through which God would bless the whole world. the central blood lineage. And of course, everybody would have an opportunity to intermarry with this central lineage. What would take the best people for the purpose of harmonising the whole world for the central lineage. This is another aspect. I talked just about divine principle because you asked me the question about the what interested me was the formula. Then from the formula, I started to understand about blood lineage and the struggle between Lucifer and Adam and these things. It started with the formula.
Thank you very much.
I was very interested in what you told me. You taught me something. If people are not really interested in something, why should I try to find out? You said this to me about if your family are kind of nominal Christians, yes? You're not really interested, you're just sort of going along. Maybe there's nothing there, so I might look like that. It's really an issue, but I never had this problem myself because I always thought, read the Bible. Right? It doesn't matter if people are nominal Christians or bad Christians. It's got nothing to do with it. Is it the Word of God? And is there something there for me God wants? For me? No, not for me, for the whole world. Is it something that no one has seen? Right? Wonderful.
Cool, man. I respect you.
So Brexit is the English Revolution. Remember, Brexit, the real purpose of Brexit is to break down centralised power. We want to have democracies in our community, right back to the community. So there should be a democracy, there should be about 400 families. So 400 families should get together and they should meet to choose leaders every 4 years. It shouldn't be like big boroughs and you don't know the people. Do you know your MP? So how would you know who to vote for? You see the problem. So we need to know the people that we trust, and then actually it wouldn't matter which religion people came from, because if you knew a Muslim family that was good, you wouldn't mind voting for them. Because you'd know they're a good family, and that's what you want, isn't it? Good families? You wouldn't care who it was, which nation, whatever. You wouldn't care. What do you do like 7 days a week? What do you do the rest of the job or a videographer? So you do that as like anything. Also filming the people, wedding.
Yeah, all of that. I respect it.
Outside. Which religion other than Christianity?
Sorry. Serious.
No man comes to the Father except through me.
Hey, what's going on?
Then you're gonna end up like putting in like a fixed system that's probably gonna discriminate against non-Muslims.
No, I don't want to do this on the...
Are you scared?
It's not scared,
I thought you said you didn't want to do takia. And so why don't you want to record it? And so what's the problem with it being recorded?
It's sincere when you have it on the camera. When you talk
so why do you approach Shamsi then?
I'll tell you why. Because with James, you're talking to a Christian about...
He's not Christian.
Sorry, an atheist Christian.
artist and someone who kind of like enjoys kind of following a discussion logically to its conclusion, you know, would take such a blind following approach to...
No. Don't use the science. Science is not a belief. I'm a scientist, but science is not a religion. What?
Yeah.
I can't say Guys, I'm getting tired, so but doing things the correct way and me running away from the discussion. I used to love to deal with this debates about little minutiae, but time and time people advise reading very people close to you, and they told you are going down the wrong way. Don't go to Khartoum and start talking to her about but people, by the way, Muslims treat James like Khartoum. I don't know why, but they don't like him. I don't know if you know that. It's not danger as in you should fear it, but it's counterproductive. It is counterproductive. If I go to this guy and tell him, show to him that Islam allows traffic light or it's okay to use Islam. I know, but voting. If I go into voting, does that prove Islam is right if I show you that you can vote for a leader?
What do you think?
You asked me about voting. I just said, okay.
Say, you know what I mean? You just believe in something that is there, and you have to.
But you also believe in things more than you think. You believe in separation of church and state, and that's fixed.
I believe that whatever you believe in is fine. Do not impose it on society.
But everything.
We have laws, and we have
but that is imposing on society.
Well, yes, I know. Not from a 2,000-year-old crazy.
Actually, a lot of this is from centuries-old humanist teaching, Judeo-Christian teaching, which is older than Islam.
Yeah, I'm not saying Christianity is perfect. I'm saying both are dangerous. Both are.
You use what words that change every time.
Yeah, it gets better and better. But what do you think is your sort of strongest evidence that Muhammad was a Jew?
My strongest evidence that he was a real prophet is that there is a God, he sends us, they all said the same thing.
Say it again.
And the fact that he gave this video, you should have said that because self-isolated.
Now let me give you a quick
that discussion is not what most people talk about. You're trying to
Muhammad was not only poison.
Are wrong. So you already decided.
Well, you've already decided Islam is right.
Who's the man given a command from God?
Yeah, so I know I can either show you pieces of evidence that I think disprove Islam, or I can ask you what are your evidences in favour of Islam, whichever one you prefer.
Morality is almost it will change in 100 years' time, and it doesn't.
I think it could all.
Takes the ball. So we call it now, it's evolved. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Sorry,
it
it's evolved. Morality in society, I'm talking about, not individual. Homosexuality was illegal 30 years ago. Now, it's in champagne. So it's a complete flip. What if it becomes
trajectory of history is for morality people to get kinder. Like the general trajectory of human history is that we've gotten kinder, more.
I would argue that the West is heading towards something. Why do you think that Islam is you guys
like the West bans slavery.
catch up with the sense. No. Catch up with a sense of justice. What? No, he's talking about the values of Islam. I'm not saying the religion of Islam. Sure, but
whole is wrong.
Why do you think it's wrong?
Why?
Why?
Everything apart from those obviously good things.
But okay, forget the good things.
Most religions have certain things that
But you're judging all religions with the same brush. I'm saying most religions are probably what you say.
because you think that
Of course I think.
Christianity is worse. And did you understand that Christians say
But the difference between me and Christians is I believe Christianity used to be a great religion.
Christians don't care about Islam. They do Islam.
Actually, Christians,
We allow you to do
you know, they say this. I
you allow me to listen? Can I go and build a church in the Middle East? And we build a church?
Have you been to the Middle East?
No, I've never been there. I don't think I will.
Well, so look, the Middle East is full of churches. In Libya, I went.
You're right. That's in like classical Islamic law. You're not allowed to build it.
In Arabia, only in a few countries is not allowed.
In a Muslim country?
Yes, Egypt is a Muslim country. There's churches. They're building them.
You're right. That's in classical Islamic law, you weren't allowed to build new churches in the land.
I don't know, but I'm saying.
What you're saying, like, has some, truth.
But I'm saying you speak.
Sorry, I was going to come in.
So you misquote the Bible, and let me help you to quote the Bible. Really, all I can say is God was allowing them to destroy their enemies.
Rob,
that's the only logical way I can.
No problem. So, Rob, according to you, babies are enemies.
Not according to me.
According to the Bible, babies are enemies.
If God has told someone to get rid of those babies, then there's nothing I can do about that.
So therefore,
I
you
either accept the Bible as true or not, and that's simple as that.
So tell me, how is logical for you to come and try to criticize Islam when you believe that it's okay for God to say kill babies and children for something they never done? So you are here standing in front of camera, justifying the killing of babies and children, and you have a gut to come speak about against Islam.
Well, I mean, look, if you want to look at hadiths, there's hadiths where...
Name one who said kill babies and children.
I think there was a pregnant woman was feeding...
That's not true, it's unauthentic.
No, not pregnant, she was feeding her baby, and they came along and they killed the woman.
And
there was a young boy, he was doing something...
No, you're just making up things.
No, this is...
No. First of all, let us deal with the first thing. You are, look, Rob.
I mean, there's plenty of people that Muhammad had either tortured or killed, and we got that in the hadith.
Rob, let me be straightforward. Do you have a problem with Prophet Muhammad who's killing people?
Well, anybody who's killing other people, right? If they're saying that they're sanctioned by God, then I'm going to question that as an automatic thing.
So when Moses killed babies and children, why not question it?
I do.
So you're not Christian. You have doubt about your Christianity.
No. Just because I question it doesn't mean to say I'm not accepting that God.
Okay.
You
now,
see what I'm saying?
Now look. Now what's my point? My point. Your criteria is the Bible, correct?
Yeah.
So your criteria for what is good, what is bad,
bearing in mind I live by New Testament.
But let me finish. So your criteria, what is good, what is bad, is the Bible, correct?
Well, I live by New Testament now.
I understand that, but I'm saying, okay, for the New Testament, your criteria is the New Testament.
Yeah, I'd say that's a lot of the rules that I live by. Yeah.
Would you use the New Testament to go against the Old Testament?
All I know is that the killing.
I'm not asking you that, Rob.
Stop. No,
I'm asking you, do you use the New Testament as a criteria?
In this way, I've got to answer in this
Go
way. The killing stopped in the New Testament, where Jesus said you've got to love your enemies. So
serious?
Everything stopped. All the killing stopped.
So,
and then the next thing I know, I'm looking at the Quran, 9111, and the killings come back.
You
again.
keep jumping to the
God,
Quran.
you're getting me confused.
No, God's not getting confused. You're confusing.
You know?
Okay, when Jesus come back, he's not going to kill?
Well, no. If people attack him,
what he's going to do?
He's going to defend himself.
What he's going to do? To kill them?
If people attack him.
Yes. What he's going to do?
If people attack him.
Yes.
And they declare themselves as his enemy, he's
yes.
going to defend himself.
By killing them.
Well, I don't. If that's what it takes, I suppose.
If you fight someone, you're not going to brush his hair.
No, if that's what it takes, I suppose.
Of course.
You know?
So now, when Jesus is going to come, if Jesus will return today, you're going to get more confused then.
No, like I say.
Okay, so Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
wasallam. My prophet.
Yeah, that's why I don't like you. Can you have time, please? Can someone time? Because you don't allow me to finish my point.
Love your enemies.
And hide your mother.
No.
Yeah, in the Old Testament, go to look. New Testament, look.
You know what he's saying by that? He's saying that you should take time to leave your family and go and do his work. So you shouldn't just have too much love for your family that you wouldn't leave your family and go and do that work.
So you finished that. Please, let me finish my point. For people to understand, he approached me and he said he has a problem with killing, okay? that in the Quran. But in the Quran, clearly Allah mentions Surah Al-Mumtahina, categorize the non-believers into two categories. Allah said in the Quran clearly, if someone can get me Surah Al-Mumtahina translation. As for those, who never fight you because of your religion, and never took you out from your houses, then be good to them, be kind to them. Look what Allah is categorizing. However, as for those who try to kill you because of your religion, who are they? The enemies. He said to me, he has no problem for Jesus to fight against enemies. But he has a problem when the Prophet Muhammad fight against enemies. Just as America, when America kill innocent people, they are the heroes. But if someone else do it, they are the terrorists. Terrorists all the time, correct? Yeah. Rob, I haven't finished my point. Rob, I haven't finished my point. Look, clearly.
And Jews as the enemies.
No, not like that. No. Rob, behave, please. Rob, clearly people can see you getting I know it's a bit hot. I understand that. So now, he said, look what I said. Allah clearly mentioned that. Prophet Muhammad in the hadith, he said in the war, in a war, some people, they justify it by killing innocent people. That's just what American did to Iraqis, by killing innocent people, children. Now they justify it. But Prophet Muhammad said, in a war, you're not allowed to kill children, or a woman, or even the priest in his temple. Look at the message clear. But my man here, he's a problem now, which I'm going to put him in a big problem now. Rob, no, inshallah. Rob, my question to you, who is more merciful and more loving and more caring? I haven't finished. More loving and more caring. Jesus as God or Jesus as human? Both.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Jesus never had a sex slave. So.
No, wait. Jesus as God said to Moses to kill a woman. Brothers, please. If you cannot handle it, you can leave. He said Jesus as God and Jesus as human, they are both more caring, more love. But we know no one is more merciful than God. Correct? Silence. I like silence.
No, obviously.
You know what it means? Adhan al-Maghrib. It's Adhan for breaking fast.
Give me a second. No, I would say that if you look at the New Testament, Jesus was just equally as merciful.
No, I didn't ask that. You're missing my question. My question,
to
Rob, here.
As God.
Rob, don't ask a question if I ask.
He was merciful because he died on the cross.
Look, listen. When Jesus was in New Testament, he was a human, correct? In New Testament, he was a human.
Yeah, he took a human form.
Okay. Nice. But before New Testament, he was God. In the Old Testament, he was God.
No, fair enough. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So who is more caring, more loving, more merciful, without any doubt, God, more than anyone else? No, but when Jesus was God, sorry. When Jesus, I understand. It's more loving.
Yeah,
Something
I want to say he doesn't know.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah,
it's the same.
But
it's the same.
Okay, so now, so Jesus as God and Jesus as human, they are equal.
Jesus as God and Jesus as human.
Yeah, they are equal.
Equal to God.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I would say that there might be a difference is because Satan took Jesus into the wilderness and tempted him, whereas I don't think Satan could have done that with the Father. Could he tempted the Father, God?
So Jesus is lesser than God, the Father?
Well, yeah, the New Testament says Jesus made himself lesser than the angels.
God or human? In human form or in God form?
Well, that's just a kind of a straw man argument.
No,
straw man question.
Listen carefully. Jesus as God, is he equal to the Father?
No. Well, yeah.
So he cannot be God, because if God higher than him.
After he came off the cross, what did he say? I've been given all the authority in heaven and earth.
Can someone answer my question? Jesus as God, is he equal to the Father? If you have in doubt,
after the cross, he said, "I've been given all authority in heaven and earth."
Okay, Jesus as human.
In that time, then I would argue yes, but before that time, I would probably say no.
So God was deficient, cannot be God anymore. Jesus cannot be God because from God's nature, to not be deficient.
Hold on. In the New Testament, it says Jesus was made lower than the angels. For a time, I think he says for a time.
I don't want to go off topic. Remember, my main topic about killing.
Okay, that's my answer.
Okay, Rob, no problem. What everyone can understand, the Christians, when they speak to the Muslims, they say, no, Jesus in the New Testament, he said, love your enemies. So they want to make Jesus in the New Testament as if he's more caring, more loving when he was God. Because when you go to the Old Testament, Jesus was God in the Old Testament, correct? But in the Old Testament it says kill babies, slaughter them, and children. So my question to you, you are so embarrassed of your God when he was in the Old Testament. My point here is, I have respect, it's time for Maghrib, that you as a Christian missionaries, you have no leg to stand on to criticize our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because you have in your own book to say kill babies, kill children, kill a woman.
In the Old
A prophet,
Testament.
that was Jesus, correct?
Jesus completely
Was that Jesus?
changed that.
Was that Jesus?
And my problem with
Rob,
Muhammad
was that Jesus?
is that Muhammad
He's
came
not answering.
and turned
Was
it
that
back
Jesus?
to the days of the Old Testament when things were improving. Why?
No. Was that Jesus when he said kill babies and children in the Old Testament?
No.
So Jesus not God then? So which God we speak in the Old Testament?
Well, Jesus was not mentioned as saying that.
So which God we speak in the Old Testament?
God the Father was mentioned as saying that.
So who is more loving, God the Father or Jesus?
Well, they're both loving.
So okay, good. So when God the Father was saying to kill babies and children, was he all loving as well?
God
Make advert for Maghrib.
allowed for that killing to take place.
I'm not asking you God allow it or not. I'm a question because you are saying
Just like Muhammad
Just like
allowed
Muhammad.
his companions
So now
to torture and kill people.
Rob, no. Rob, hey, wait. Rob, let me ask you. You believe Prophet Muhammad is the false prophet?
Yes.
So you cannot justify your problem with someone who is a false prophet. So you can give us a logical argument.
Should bring back killing after we've
He
been
is not,
told from two major prophets, thou shalt not kill.
Who said that?
Surah 9:111.
No, he said don't kill. Who said don't kill?
Jesus, peace be upon
Which
him,
himself killed?
and Moses.
Which himself killed people as well.
Yeah, I agree that Moses.
Allah,
maybe
Rob,
that's why the tablet
Allah,
was
look.
broken. Maybe that's why the tablet was broken.
Bro. No,
The
Allah
Ten
said in the Quran.
Commandments.
No, Allah said in the Quran. Allah said that whoever kill a soul unjustly, then Allah's curse be upon him. So in Islam, yes, we have that law. Do not kill as well. However, the killing that Allah is speaking about here, killing against your enemies, which you believe is okay, when it comes to Jesus, when he's going to come back. So I'm saying, no, before we go to this subject.
No. Let me get a word in. Why did the hadiths talk about torture and killing when Muhammad was sent as a mercy to mankind?
Yeah.
He's sent as a mercy to mankind. Agreed?
Yeah.
So why is the hadith talking about torturing people and killing people?
Okay, now.
If he's a mercy to mankind.
Can I answer now?
He wasn't a mercy to Kurtha.
Okay, can I answer now?
He wasn't a mercy to Kinana. He wasn't a mercy to the dancing girls. He wasn't a mercy to
Dancing
many
girls?
people. The dancing girls who criticised him and he had them killed.
Okay, now. Okay, have you finished?
One of the companions who came to him and said, if I go and kill this guy for you who criticised you, I have to lie. And what did Muhammad say? Yes, go ahead, you can lie.
Okay,
what the hell?
I'll let you speak.
I can lie in front of God?
Okay.
What?
Okay,
Anyway, I've got to tell the truth.
No problem. Yeah, it's good. Now, step by step, I'll let you speak, so don't cut me.
right,
because your God in that Bible, he lied. Jesus said, I don't know the hour. When he, as God, knows the hour, so he's lying. Clearly. So your God lied. Prophet Muhammad is not God.
Wait a minute. So you're saying Jesus lied?
Yeah, according to you,
Hold on a minute.
it's not let me finish. Let me finish. You have to let me finish. Allow me to finish. No, for the sake of argument, according to your book, I said.
Careful, Shamsi, because
I said according to your book. I said according to your book.
That is strong.
Okay. Now allow me to finish my point. Now Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, this guy Rabia, may Allah guide us and guide him. He's doing straw man arguments. Where he's saying Prophet Muhammad, he's just doing what? Tactic of the gun doubt. That's just step by step we do with it. Allah mentioned clearly in the Quran, those who never fight us because of our religion, to be good to them, be kind to them. How come this verse?
929.
It's not. Look. It's not let me finish. You let me finish. But my
Jews and Christians fight.
No, let me finish.
Until they accept. Contradicts with 2256.
He's not let me finish. If you don't speak to him, he's not let me finish. But he's not let me finish.
ISIS.
Okay, ISIS. Okay, ISIS as I don't want to go to many points. That's last week that argument I had with one brother like that. When I want to deal with one point, he bring another point. I'm ready to destroy every point. I'm proud to be Muslim. because Islam is the truth, and I'm proud to speak to you with every point to destroy it and dismantle it.
No, but
allow me to finish with the condition. Allow me to finish.
Bring you guys out of the hellfire.
Yeah, to another hellfire.
Because when you get to the gates,
He's not to the hellfire.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
A warner.
He's not gonna let me finish.
A warner was sent to me.
He's not allowed me to
Speaker's
speak.
Corner.
Prophet
I never
Muhammad,
listened.
look, I'm
I
gonna
just
finish.
mocked him. I
Prophet
never
Muhammad ﷺ never killed no one unjustly. Rather,
Well, there's plenty of
he's not let me
hadiths
finish.
that say
He's not let me
opposite.
finish.
Plenty of hadiths that say
He's not let me to
opposite.
finish.
That he killed and tortured many people.
Anywhere the viewers can see
And
that
he
many
was
of them.
supposed to be a mercy to mankind.
He's not. Can I speak now? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Shake it. It's embarrassment. Google is not. Anyway, look. I'm saying the Christians, they have no leg to stand on. Because your God said kill babies and children. I will challenge you in front of everyone here. Bring me one verse or one hadith. Allah said to Prophet Muhammad, go kill babies and children. Don't tell me about something else. My question to you, which everyone can understand, even a donkey. One verse, one hadith, where Allah or Prophet Muhammad said, go kill babies and children.